Okay, welcome everyone. This is Success Mindset Podcast. Really great to have you here live and on the replay. If you're here on the replay, but you guys that are here live, welcome. Always awesome to have you on the live stream. You can also ask questions when you're on live, so feel free to do that. We have Glo here live, so one of the advantages is we can ask questions and you can really get involved. So, as I say, really glad to have you here. I met the lovely Glo through her partner, John Boyle, who we just recently had on the podcast. John Boyle is the billionaire owner of Boyle Sports, an amazing man in himself and his business. But we have this beautiful, amazing partner on here who is a doctor, and she is an expert when it comes to nutrition and health. And we're going to get a lot of gems here tonight because she really understands the mind, as John does as well. Because I actually met John and his beautiful partner Glo through a mentor that we had in Mindset Mastery. So they obviously have studied the mind as well, and Glo then has went on and took her expertise further in health and nutrition. But she started off, I'm going to give you her background. Dr. Glo is Dr. Gloriane, get this right, Giovannelli, is that correct, Glo?
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, is a private health consultant, coach, and public speaker. She also holds a weekly soul refresh group called Live Life Lessons Sessions. For over 20 years, Gloriane has been helping people get healthier, lose weight, grow younger, and develop a deep mental and spiritual strength. Her purpose is to help people experience the limitless potential that lies within each and every one of us. Originally Glo's from New York in United States. Gloriane first came to Ireland in 1993 and fell in love with this beautiful country we're in here right now. Gloriane is back in America. She lived in Ireland for a number of years. We'll talk briefly about that. And fell in love with the Irish, Ireland and the Irish people. And she met her partner John, who's from Ireland. But they both now have moved in later years now to Malibu, California, where Glo is now with John. They live out in California in the States. So Dr. Glo, her degrees which started off in chiropractic. So she's a doctor of chiropractic health. She has a BA in psychology, BA in advertising, as well as a certificate in plant-based nutrition from E. Cornwell and the T. Colin Campbell Center of Nutritional Studies. So there you go. Great introduction to this amazing lady we have tonight. So Glo, how are you this evening? This morning it is for you, but this evening here.
It's this morning in California. Not as sunny actually as it normally is in California, but I'm great. Thank you, Mark.
Awesome. Well, it's really great to have you. Thanks for taking your time this morning, we'll just call it, taking this time for people here in Ireland and all over the world, really, because we're very fortunate people are following and getting to know about our channel from all over the world, even currently, and it's growing all the time. So there's different countries, even though I'm based here in Ireland, where I'm at right now. So Glo, you have many expertise in great life-changing things like the mind, is where we initially met with John, with one of our mentors. But we're going to talk tonight about your expertise, especially in nutrition and health, and how that, and how important that is first and foremost, but also then how that integrates with the mind. So before we get into that, why don't you give us maybe a wee bit of background on you, and so that people can get to know the Glo that I know, the amazing Glo. So
sure. So like you said, I trained as a chiropractor. I'm not in chiropractic practice at the moment. What I found really was this underlying principle that's in chiropractic, which is that there's a universal intelligence in everything. And it can perfect anything. It can heal us. It can develop us. It can create success for us. That's present in all of us. And that is the underlying principle of chiropractic. And as a chiropractor, we were trained to remove interference from that intelligence as it runs through the nervous system. And what I found was that principle didn't just apply to healing the body, that it applies to what we eat, it applies to how we think, it applies to our spiritual life. And so really, I just broadened my perspective from that and found there were multiple ways for me to tap into that passion and to develop my own connection with that intelligence. And that's that's really what I hope to do with the people I work with, is to help each person get deeper in touch with that limitless intelligence.
Yeah, and it's uncovering that. And yeah, so I found out quite a bit from yourself and one of my mentors in mindset now, because he went on and really started to get into the mindset in a big way, Dr. Joe Dispenza. But he also started as a chiropractor, and from learning about the brief bit I learned about him as a chiropractor and yourself, it is really about what you can obviously you've touched on it there, but it's about taking the blockages, as you say, away from this life force, you know, that we're all made up of. It's the people call it God, infinite intelligence, all these different labels, but it's the same thing. So isn't that really what you do as a chiropractor? You know, first and foremost, is it take away those blocks? Is that correct?
That's exactly it. So from whether it be the training with the mind that we've done, or whether it be work as a chiropractor, there's this understanding that life is perfect as it is, that when we're in our natural state, when we're connected to the life within us, that there is a type of perfection. It may not always be the way the human understanding wants to think of perfection, but that there is perfection in the flow of life. And if we're not experiencing that, it means there's something blocking the path. It's not that we need to make life better. It's not that we need to improve. We're just either unlearning or removing something that has gotten in our way.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and already we're linking the two, and which is the great thing about ourselves, Glo, which is part of the reason, or part of the theme that we wanted to have tonight, to realize that it's about getting rid of the blockages. Like our mind, it comes as we're born. You know, as we're born, as we both know from our training in the mind, is that we're born a blank canvas, this perfection, but it's the programming we get from society and our you know, it could be our parents, but that doesn't mean our parents are bad. It just means our parents didn't know any better, but you know, only different because they weren't taught this. And you know, that's why what's so valuable, what we do, is that people need to learn this information to be able to you know, get rid of their virus code that they've got from they were growing up, and all the different foods, you know, so the environment, the thinking and the foods, but also then, you know, because they have got that virus code, we're helping them to become aware of it and get rid of it. So in terms of like just before we leave the chiropractic but sorry, is that whenever you're doing that, so that people maybe get an understanding that don't know about chiropractic, like, are you basically through the movements, or how does that work again, the chiropractic?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Because we tend to associate chiropractors with moving bones, with making popping sounds, right? And while that is one way that you can receive a chiropractic adjustment, there's actually hundreds of different types of adjustments. But that type of thing where you go in and you hear pops and bones move, that does happen. But the purpose of those moves is to release any pressure on the nerves and the neurological system. So your nervous system is your control and your communication. So you've got a brain, a spinal cord, and nerves that branch out throughout the whole body, and they control everything. And there's a communication where the brain gets feedback, what's going on in the body and what's going on out in my environment. And the body is feeding to the brain, and the brain is feeding to the body. And it's this beautiful orchestra of things happening. When there's interference, that interference can be because of an injury, trauma, thoughts, toxic thoughts, trauma, and toxins. So what do we take into our body? What toxins are we exposed in the atmosphere? Thoughts, trauma, and toxins can disrupt the nerve flow. When you disrupt nerve flow, your control system is affected, your communication system is affected. The chiropractor makes adjustments to take pressure off of the nerves, restoring flow.
Oh yeah, so that's brilliant actually. So it's allowing the life force that is this, what's called all-knowing, all-powerful, omnipresent life force that creates everything. Like not just us humans, that is trillions of cells and so much stuff, so so many functions going on inside our body, but everything in the whole universe. It's just so phenomenal. But that life force is coming through us all the time. So the chiropractic work helps to release that. But that's only one step. We're obviously going to talk about the nutrition, because if you're not putting the right nutrition into your body and you're putting toxic, food source or toxic substances into your body, it's blocking again the life force because there's too much toxicity. But also then we're going to talk about the toxic thoughts, and the guys that follow me will know that, because we were leading up to this interview with yourself, I was touching on that this week, just before this interview, just to give people a taste of what we were going to be doing tonight. So yeah, that's allowing the life force. So you're taking away the blockages. But again, the importance of nutrition. Do you want to bring in your knowledge there and share that with people here on how important nutrition is because of the toxicity, etc., because of processed foods and all that nowadays?
Yes. So some people believe that toxic food and a toxic environment creates toxic thoughts. And other people will say, well, no, it was the toxic thoughts that created bad choices, and then you started eating bad foods, etc. Well, it's both.
Yeah, both. It's both.
Chicken or the egg. It's both. So it's probably easier to start with how nutrition creates toxic thoughts and toxic behaviors. I can give you so many examples. I don't believe that I have to tell this audience that there are chemicals and other things in our food that are designed to get us addicted. And,
yes.
In the past, I was bulimic, and I didn't know at that time that I was eating foods in whatever quantity it may have been. I was eating foods that was creating a deeper and deeper addiction, and these behaviors of binging and purging. Now, were there thought processes behind that? Absolutely. But I couldn't even get to those thought processes until I got the toxins out of my food. And then once I brought down the physical and chemical reactions that were going on in my body and my brain, well, then I could start dealing with the thoughts and the emotions.
Yeah.
So it partly depends on how toxic you are. But let's talk about depression. I don't know that there's any more serious condition in the world right now. I mean, there's loads of serious conditions, but when you talk about somebody getting to the state where they feel that hopeless, we have to look at things more than just telling people you're not thinking of the right way. Like there's more stuff happening there. When you eat certain foods that are chemically processed, that are so concentrated with fat, sugar, and calories, it's completely outside of nature.
Yeah.
You are guaranteed to create sadness and anxiety. It's the natural result of eating unnatural foods, chemically processed foods, is sadness and anxiety. I have some interesting statistics to share. I won't overload you with the science. John was like, are you sure you want to give all them stuff? Or that stuff?
Keep it simple, yeah.
And I will keep it simple. But
I know. I was just having it off. John was probably saying, keep it simple. But
definitely.
No, the studies, we can balance it out. Yeah, keep it simple. But we'll have a few studies just to get a taster of the science. It's good to have a little bit of science. Yeah. So
I think that the purpose of anything that I want to share with you today, if I do draw a little bit on the science, is that we need to look at our food choices in a much bigger perspective than I'm going to gain 10 pounds if I eat that. That is, when we look at what the world is dealing with today, that is irrelevant. We have children who are growing up on fast foods, soda, things that are not just creating sadness and anxiety, but they literally create violence. I came across a study, where they looked at 5-year-olds. They had behavior and attention problems. They had violent outbursts. They went through all the variables, and way more important than how many hours of television they watched, way more important than whether they were in a stressful household, was how much soda they drank.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true, and I mean, that's again, we're still keeping it simple here. John's really right. This, the simpleness of the message, but some of these studies, just a couple of them, just to really hit home the important points like that, because so many children have been diagnosed with things, and it's not to do with like the label they're being given. It's to do with the food that, as Glo, that's causing these things. Yeah, so.
You have a minimum of a 51% higher chance of depression if you eat a lot of processed baked goods. So donuts, cookies, all of that stuff. A minimum of a 51% greater chance of depression if you eat a lot of that stuff. And the more you eat, the more chances you will be depressed. The higher percentage of people will be depressed.
Yeah, and so many, as you would know, Glo, there's so many studies now that, which is the great thing about modern science, is it's starting to understand so much. Like quantum physics has been amazing for the mind, to understand the mind, but like the science is understanding that the gut is well, it's not like new science. I think Hippocrates was even saying this back in the day. He was saying that all disease comes from the gut. But science is now being able to show it, through their studies, which gives it more, like even more oomph or credibility. That the serotonin, I think it's like the second brain, and then there's another brain in the heart because it's got neurons. But the second brain in the gut produces like 90% of all the serotonin. So like that would totally go with what you've just said of why depression comes so much from what you eat. And obviously then, because there's neurons in your gut, it's also your thoughts as well. But yeah, like, and soda, it's so full of sugar. What's your thoughts on sugar? Like, there's also the whole science thing that's coming out there that sugar is actually one of the things that cancer feeds off, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just such a big toxin. Is there any other toxic or what would be your main toxic foods that you would
well,
mention?
first of all, like sugar, we can't not talk about sugar because it shrinks your brain. So sugar shrinks your brain. And I'm not talking about sugar that you eat from an apple, because it's tied to fiber, and also tied within that are loads of nutrients, antioxidants, all of that. So I'm not talking about eating an apple. I'm talking about sugar, and that includes coconut sugar. Sorry for the bad news, guys, but it shrinks your brain. And do you know who Eric Clapton is, the musician?
Yeah, yeah.
He says his drug addiction started with sugar.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what I was just saying? That I'd read that research that sugar is supposed to be as addictive as cocaine. It's on the same level. It lights up a part of your brain that is the same as when you take cocaine. Sugar lights up the same part of the brain, and that's crazy because there's children all taking sugar. It's just bonkers, and that's why they're saying it's just needs, the refined sugars that you're talking about, which is the processed sugar that's put in all these products, is just like so toxic.
It is. I mean, so refined sugar is partly because it's now in everything. I remember years and years ago, this is a long time ago, I was looking for smoked salmon in the grocery store. And I had no idea that somebody might put sugar in smoked salmon. It never even occurred to me. I happened to be looking at the back of the packet, and I saw sugar in smoked salmon. At the time, I was doing like a low carb thing. So I didn't want anything that had sugar in it. Now it might be for different reasons, but I was shocked. And if you look at most things that come in a package, you will find some form of sugar, and it will oftentimes now be under a different name so that you don't realize it's sugar.
Yeah, there's different. They try to hide it through different names as well. Yeah. So sugar, I think, refined flour. What's the other thing? Dairy. What's your thoughts on dairy? Not good because it's inflammation, or what do you think?
I think some people are more sensitive to it than others, but dairy is a food that tends to clog the system. It just does. It blocks up the gut. It causes a lot of allergies. I don't take it. And it's been a long time since I've taken it. I remember there was a time when I was taking a protein that had a high amount of a dairy protein in it. I was taking protein powder, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't breathe. My sinus was so clogged up. And somebody said to me, well, you know that protein can do that. I said, what? I had no idea. And I didn't go dairy free at that time, but I am dairy free now. There's a lot of problems with dairy, and partly it can be because of the way we get our dairy, the environment that the animals are raised in. But even if you were to get a pure source of dairy, for a lot of people, it can be problematic. I mean, they have found a direct correlation between cancer and the casein protein that's in dairy. So as your intake of it goes up, so does cancer rates. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people who do not want to hear that. And here's the thing with food, we all have emotional connection with food. So I'm not saying everybody has to stop eating dairy. I'm just saying that there's evidence that says you might want to look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Glo. We're not here to overwhelm people and scare them. It's basically about starting to become aware of the right foods and basically how to feed your body with the right stuff. And we're going to be sharing so much more of this with Glo here, with different things she has to mention on that. So as much as we're sharing the information, it's all about starting to improve, and don't get overwhelmed. Just go, right, okay, I've got the right information about nutrition, and obviously the mind stuff that people do with me, and we're going to mention that here. But it's starting the journey. Don't get overwhelmed. Just go, right, okay, if I get 1% better every day, I'm moving in the right direction. So it takes time to change. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, we'll talk about that when we get into the mindset shift that you have to make. So it takes a bit of work and a bit of process. So yeah, it's a good point to mention, guys. Don't get overwhelmed. Just before we go back to Glo, I just want to say, guys, please share this. There's amazing information we're going to be sharing here. We already have, shared some gems, but so much more still to share. So please feel free to share this out to people, and let more and more people out there hear this so that they can start to move forward in a positive way. So yeah, back to you, Glo. Yeah, it's so true in what you said there. What garbage in, garbage out. I heard you saying before, I heard that term. So true. So yeah, what other things would you mention on the line of what we were just talking about?
So anything that is highly processed. So I think people understand, well, what is processed food? Well, maybe it's easier to say, well, what is a whole food? Yeah. Whole food is an apple, a vegetable, anything that comes in its pure form, especially if it came out of the ground, that's a whole food. Now, something that hasn't been processed in multiple ways and combined with a lot of different ingredients and then baked at high temperatures. So the less that is done to it before it gets to your plate, the better.
Yeah, that's a really good simple way of putting it. Is literally the like farm to fork type of thing. Like the less of that journey, and the less it has to go through a factory per se. For example, the less process is going to be, the less chemicals it's going to have. Like obviously the less processed chemicals, pesticides it'll have if it's not went through the factory. But even when it comes to farming to fork, a lot of food is sprayed with chemicals, pesticides. So that's why trying to get organic potentially, but look, sometimes it's affordability. You do the best you can, guys. It's not about, again, getting overwhelmed. Do the best you can, and if you can go organic, I would say you'd probably agree is the best way. But you have amazing products, Glo, that we're going to talk about, that obviously is a kind of way of substituting that in some way. But we'll get onto that. This is one of your main things that you do, so we'll mention that as well. Yeah. So what anything else on that, Glo?
Well, the flip side of it, besides avoiding things, and as you said, just to quickly go to the organic, in an ideal world, we would all eat organic, okay? And if you can do that, please do. And if you can't, or if you can only get certain things organic, here's the good news, is that when you're eating foods that have a lot of fiber, basically fruits and vegetables and whole grains, the fiber will take with it, because it's not digested, it will take with it out of the body some of those pesticides and things. So I would prefer if we could all have organic. That would be my ideal world. But if you can't, make sure you're getting an ample amount of living foods, fruits, vegetables, and things like that. And that will, at least if you can't be organic, that some of the fiber in that food is going to pull it through your system and you'll eliminate it, which is good news.
Yeah, and there's the words I use sometimes myself is real food and fake food, and you can call it different things. So the real food is what you've been talking about, the food that's living life, the life force is still there. So that's why your body laps it up, because we are a life force, as Glo mentioned at the start. We come into this world pure life force, and it's us that put on the virus code through our thoughts of the negative thoughts of programming that we may have got growing up through society environment. And look, unless you learn the mindset information and you're taught that growing up from your parents, the reality is most cases you do get negative programming, because society, the news, there's so much bombarding us with negativity. So you really have to train yourself to be positive and learn this information to do that. But then when it comes to the food, obviously that's a learning again, and following the things that Glo's saying here. And then Glo has some products that you may be interested in have a look at. So when we come to the link between the mind and the thoughts, or sorry, the mind and food, and going back to what you said, Glo, about the gut, this is the thing, that they both are so interlinked. And I just get your take on it, but I know this just from my own study, and they're both so interlinked, because toxicity in the body, as we just mentioned, on this life force is convoluting that. It's kind of like disrupting it from being at its best. So if that's there, then we're feeding it with their toxic thoughts, and then we're putting in fake food, which is the pesticides and food that's processed. So we really got to become aware and get rid of the fake food and put in the stuff that the life force feeds off, which is a positive food, if you like, not organic, etc. And then coming to your thoughts is about training yourself to be positive, so your body's getting the positivity, which is opposite of toxic, which is helping the life force thrive, as such, because your cells, I'm trying to think of a way of putting it, it's like your cells become more vibrant. Instead of being polluted with the toxic thoughts, they become more vibrant when your thoughts are more positive. So what about yourself on that, Glo? Would you agree with what I said? Would that be along the same line of thinking as you, or?
So it goes back to, well, why do we care about what we eat anyway? And it really, what do we want out of this life that we're in? And the number one thing people want is energy. And you can't extract some energy from something that's dead. Now, just to be clear, it's not that I'm not 100% raw diet, but raw foods that haven't been cooked beyond a certain point contain more energy. So we want life. And the way to transfer life is through life. Foods that are like, let's just say again, fruits and vegetables, right? That, every day I have a really huge salad. Now I put loads of stuff on it that makes it really tasty, things that I like. But I make sure every single day at a minimum, I have a huge salad, because I want that transfer of energy from the food to my body. I know that if I eat something, say I go out to a restaurant, right? And whatever it is I might order, I love buckwheat pancakes from Cafe Gratitude. There's this great plant-based restaurant in California called Cafe Gratitude. And I love their buckwheat pancakes, love them. But here's the thing, after I eat the buckwheat pancakes, I'm tired, I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
I know I'm not getting energy from them. I go in and I intentionally know I'm going to have something I enjoy. But most of the other time that I spend eating is with foods that are going to give me energy. And in order for them to do that, they have to have life and energy in them. Processed foods don't have that. Overly cooked foods don't have that. So every day we need to try not to just avoid toxins, but make sure we're adding in nutrition. The way that I overcame my food addiction was to first flood the body with nutrients. I had to stop. I had to get over worrying about don't eat that, don't eat too much of that. I stopped worrying about calories and I flooded my body with nutrition. That was the first step. And that's what got me over my food addictions.
Yeah. You mentioned, yeah, so it's again, so many people, even if they're just hearing this nutritional, well, most people would have a general idea about nutrition, but I mean, they can relate to even like not eating good foods if they eat like buckwheat. The thing that you're talking about there wouldn't even be the worst of things, but like people are eating McDonald's and all these different types of takeouts and stuff. You don't feel good after it because it's dead food and there's no life force in it. So anyone can relate to that in the past because most people have that type of food at some stage until they really start to become aware and how they want to feel their body and feel good energy wise, because that's not, there's so many positives from it. As you say, Glo, you get more energy if you eat the right food, you feel healthier. So there's energy, which is what life is really. You know, it's this life force energy that's creating everything. So the more vibrant you feel, the better you feel. And obviously your health is just going to be better because your body can function better, and you know, the disease can't, you know, thrive then because it doesn't have the you know, which is the fake foods really, because if you're eating live food, you're not eating the sugars, which is in the fake food, you know, the processed food. So it can all make sense when you really think about it.
You know, one of the biggest thing, and people may say it's unfair because I don't have children. I don't realize how hard it is to be a parent at this time. And I accept that. I can't imagine things that kids are surrounded with and having to try to, you know, protect them from all of it. But it's really, really important that we take charge of our own household. We take charge of our own energy, and it starts with ourselves, but especially children. I just want to read this little blurb because it's so important. To me, it really reflects what's happening in society right now. And this is from the British Journal of Psychiatry. This is not Joe's blog, you know. This is, it was, you know, it's printed in a peer-reviewed medical journal. So they found out that children who were fed more sweets at age 10 were significantly more likely to be convicted of a violent crime by age 34. This relationship was more powerful than any other environmental or individual factor. So not economic hardship, not parental attitudes, not education, not early life personality traits. The greatest correlation between violence in adults was between how much sweets they ate as children and their behavior. Like that shocked even me. That blew me away.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, and all the studies and the mindset and all these that I have is because what your condition was, because our bodies are adaptation machines, right? So whenever we're born, we're a blank canvas, and then we get all these negative programming, belief systems. I was trying to think of the word, belief systems, and different ways of looking at the world, and then it becomes our automatic because our body adapts. Until then, we become lucky enough to become aware of how to change it, and then you can change it, right? Just like your body then can adapt and change then from the programming it got from the food. You know, the body starts to crave what you give it. So if you give it loads of sugar, it then gives, it craves off that and adapts to that. but that shows you as well. But you can obviously change that by then changing your diet, as we're talking about. But like when you get into the psychology aspect, like it just shows you how it affects your psychology, because as much as they're so important together, as you are pointing out with that study, Glo, that if your nutrition is toxic, it affects your cells, which is what your mind is communicating with. So the communication isn't good, and it obviously has your thoughts more on a, it's hard to have a great mindset basically with a really bad diet.
That's
basically
the point.
Yeah, that's the point we're trying to make. So you can work on your mindset, but if your diet's terrible, you're working against yourself. Yeah, so you're working against yourself, and you can keep working at your mind, but you're eating all this bad food, and it's like you're pulling your mindset's trying to go this way, and you're pulling against it, and pulling it back down again. So what a study! Wow, it
just blew my mind. I knew the relationship was powerful, but I had no idea that it was more powerful than those other factors. But on your point there's a great quote that I love by Dr. Gabriel Cousens. Some people will have heard me use this before, but he says, look, you can't eat your way to God. But you can eat in a way that makes you, in his words, a superconductor for the divine. I'm going to paraphrase that. It's like, you're not going to eat your way to enlightenment, but you can eat in such a way that you can have the freest mind, the freest energy system, the freest emotional system possible. How are you going to be successful if you're fighting against your own body's chemicals that are being agitated and irritated all the time by what you put in your body? You may have a certain type of success, but you won't have a holistic success where you're content in your relationships, where you're content in your connection with people, your connection with yourself, as well as a business or a career.
Yeah, and it's so really, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, Glo, is that when I do my mentorship program, as my clients will adhere to, a lot of them are on here, I always talk about nutrition. But I was just thinking, Glo, I'm going to team up with you and bring you in on part of my mentorship on the nutrition side, because I have a good knowledge in it, but your expertise isn't that. And I, as my clients know, I always share nutrition because of the importance. But to have that taken to the next level would be great to have you involved there as well. So I must communicate with you on that. But look, that just shows you the how interlinked they are. Like, it's just mind-boggling. If you want to live your best life, it makes sense in so many different ways, because this is showing you the science behind. If you want to have a great mindset, obviously you need to look after your nutrition as well. This is proven that. But also, most people can relate to, if you're not eating well, I think I've heard you say this before as well, Glo, in some of your talks, is that you'll have arguments with people because it affects your mindset, and you get into a really crap mood. That's potentially right. Because of your eating. Yeah.
And think about it, for those people who do have children, you want to be available for them emotionally and even just physically. And, if you're in a food coma because of what you've just eaten, and all you want to do is lie on the couch and they want to play,
yeah.
It just makes it harder for us to bond with the people in our lives in a meaningful way when our body chemistry is distorted by food.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so many people can relate to that. Anyone that's watching this, no matter how much knowledge they have on the mind or nutrition, will be able to relate to that, because they'll have days where they'll go, they can relate it back to the food, I'm sure, what they ate. I'm like, oh my God, I was terrible that day, and I was so angry, and I can really spiral out of control, because you can quit an argument and people can, it's just, huh?
It's so true. The way things they're not really about the thing that we think they're about, and it can be triggered by something as simple as what we've eaten.
Yeah. So much here, guys, that's really going to be hitting home with you. So, I'm trying to think if there's something else I wanted to mention there before we go on to, why don't you mention some of the products? I know that people can reach out to you. We're going to give you your details if people want to get into things further, because you have, the expertise in nutrition, health, etc. People can relate to your story. I'm sure there's people out there that were bulimic. You've experienced that, but you have also studied this from all angles. You can help anyone with any condition when it comes to this. So do you want to mention some of the products that you are, or like, if people want to reach out to you, they can get into the whole ins and outs of them, but do you want to mention some of the positives from them?
Sure. So yes, anybody's welcome to email me, whether it be about the products or anything that we've talked about. But I choose to align myself with products and companies where they've been tested by third parties, tested for purity, but also tested that what they say they contain on the label actually is in the product. The supplement industry, and I am a big believer of supplements. I take a lot of supplements every day, but the supplement industry is riddled with fraud. So just to say that I wouldn't endorse anything that I haven't researched or used myself. And a big part of the line that I do use is about bringing down inflammation. As Mark said, the gut is your second brain. And when we eat foods and take things into our body that cause inflammation in the gut, we inflame the brain as well. And we do things like unintentionally, like creating aggression, irritability. Like we quite literally lower our intelligence when we eat foods that cause inflammation. And it's every single disease process, there's an element of inflammation in the process.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, that's so true. That inflammation is really what toxicity from your thoughts and from food cause. The byproduct of toxic thoughts, which is your programmed negative thinking, that you need to change if you have that. But also then if you're eating a lot of processed food, which is toxic from both sides, it turns into inflammation. That's not really what it is. And then this inflammation, that's why they say that inflammation is the prime cause of all disease, because of, is that correct?
Yes. So I don't know if I would go so far as to say it's the cause of everything, but I will definitely say anywhere you have disease, you also have inflammation, which implies a causative factor, but it doesn't guarantee it.
Basically, it's not it has an effect of or a prime instigator, to all disease. So, in terms of the products, so basically all the products you said are organic. What else? No pesticides, and you've verified everything. So people want to get into the details of that. Obviously, they can reach out to you and inquire about that. And what type of things are in the products? Is it just like all? To let us know what's in the product.
So as you said, they're organic, they're non-GMO, they're gluten-free, they're third-party tested for amazing things. Like they even test to make sure there's no radiation in them. They're really a quality product. They're formulated by Alexandria Brighton of the Brighton Institute. She is a world-class and world-famous person who works with herbs and oils and all sorts of nutritional things at a level of integrity that is not seen very often. But what are the things then that we want to be looking at for anybody, regardless of the products, to lower inflammation? So lots of Ayurvedic herbs are quite anti-inflammatory. One that people know about is turmeric or curcumin. That really does work. It really is effective. Omega-3s. I choose to get my omega-3s from algae, so plant sources. And while it is true that, like, say if you get your omega-3s from like seeds, like flax seeds and things like that, they have to do an extra conversion process to be useful in the body. So you do have to take a bit more, and that's why I add in the algae. But without the omega-3, our brain is not going to work properly, and it really does help bring down inflammation. But your thoughts create inflammation too.
Well, that's it. Yeah, and I mean, it's really, one of the main factors is to reduce inflammation. Like it causes so many disease, arthritis. Like nearly every disease, as you say, Glo, has a form of inflammation. So, like if you're able to reduce the inflammation from the toxic toxins in the body, then the body's going to be more at its true vibrancy, which is that source that we're talking about. It's come back to its life force, which is, we're actually born with this life force, which is health. We actually convolute it, as we're trying to say here, with eating the wrong foods, toxins, and also then the toxic thoughts through our mindset that we need to transform if that's the case as well to help. A few people have been asking questions here, so we'll just what is your view? So yeah, you have a good you have a practice, but also knowledge on meditation. So I think I'll ask this one as well. What is your view? Do you know about Kundalini meditation? Have you done that?
So yes, Dr. Cousins, who I mentioned earlier, I've done a lot of work with him, and he works with the Kundalini energy. Here's the thing I would say, though. This has been my approach for a long time now, not just related to individuals that I've worked with, but you want to clear the body and the mind to a certain extent before you start trying to force certain types of energies through the system. People can create problems for themselves by trying to, let's just use Kundalini because that's the question, right? Let's say you have an underlying back problem that hasn't been addressed, right? Kundalini energy is real. It rises up through the spine. Well, let's say you start doing all this Kundalini meditation. You could end up putting your back out because you're trying to push this energy through you, as opposed to letting go naturally, letting go as many times as you can throughout the day, working on your mindset, doing your quiet meditation. And when it starts to rise on its own and you start to get an awareness of it, then start working with it. But there are certain breathing techniques that you can get a certain result. You can boost your energy in a certain way. But if you don't have the clear body and the clear mind supporting it, you can either create another problem, or it only lasts a few minutes.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I've quite a bit of experience and knowledge in the meditation side as well, and I would agree that Kundalini is like a very advanced meditation, and it's very forceful. So like there's more or there's better initial meditations to do if you're starting this journey, which I always do with all my clients. There's kind of entry level ones where you're working, like you say, Glo, on the nutrition, because you're helping to release the body of toxins and inflammation with the food, and then with the mind, you're improving your thoughts to get rid of toxicity that way, and then the body's more free. And then the meditation you're initially starting with is more suitable for that. But then when you're advanced, as you're saying, and you've done a lot of this work, then Kundalini is the next step. Really, you could do it, but it can be dangerous. You think if you're like doing an advanced meditation and you haven't done the work with the is that what you're saying? It can.
I think sometimes we try to force things because we want an experience, and no matter what it is that we do, we need a solid foundation. John says he didn't just go out and open a few hundred shops. He worked in one shop for 7 years. And then he opened one more. So now I don't know, the person who asked that question, they may already have been working with this energy and that sort of stuff. So this isn't specific to that person. It's just an understanding that our energy is natural. The enlightenment of the self is a natural process if we let it unfold by getting rid of the interferences. And then any meditations we do are supportive and gentle nudges, as opposed to trying to force an experience that is it's sort of unreal because it's not going to last.
Yeah, That's good advice. Yeah, just basically, like, you know, and good metaphor there, analogy of using John, and the success that he's created. He started off one shop. He did the foundation work. You know, same thing I do with my clients. I go, look, you're just started. Let's start off with the basic stuff and build it up. And that's the only way to do things. You know, you don't jump on at the deep end if you can't swim and type of stuff. So yeah, great analogy. And obviously we're the person that asked that question, we don't know how experienced they are. So
Yeah.
it's all relative. It's all relative to the person. But the advice is here. You know, each person can obviously relate to that in their experience. So one other question here is, Glo aware of the products Symprove, Symprove? No, Symprove.
I'm, you know what, it sounds familiar, but
Yeah.
it's not clicking for me right now. So I would Google it when I'm done, but it sounds familiar. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I know this person really well, so we'll get back to them on that. And what's your thoughts on caffeine? Is it good or bad, or
was it good or bad?
Depends, is it? Depends.
You know, for most people, some caffeine is going to be fine, right? I have talked to many experts, people who have been involved in nutrition and spiritual matters for years. And even 5 years ago, if you had asked them, say, about coffee, they would have said, no coffee, no coffee. They've all changed their mind, all of them. They're now all saying the research is so powerful, it's decades long, and it shows that there's health benefits in coffee. But none of them are saying go out and drink to your heart's content, you know, have your 2 cups. So a little bit can bring about the advantages that caffeine has, you know, for, like, you know, opening the circulation in the brain, and giving you that sort of feeling of clarity of mind. But caffeine also can be addictive. So if you take too much of it, you're going to be addicted to it. And it's not, I wouldn't encourage addiction of any kind. So if you're not sensitive to it, a little bit is okay.
Yeah, again, I've seen research myself. I remember over the year, for the last 14 years, going to all the different people I've been to, which are, you know, the top people in the world in different fields, and they all had their own takes on things, but they have changed with different research coming out. Same thing as you said, Glo. So what I've done now, because I have always had a love for a certain amount of coffee, so I stopped it, and then I seen the research, and so I take it now, but I take a certain type. It's a very organic, and it's not processed at all. So that's what I do. Yeah. But again, I don't take too much of anything, and too much is well, other than there's certain things, like I'm sure you would say nutrition, the right nutrients. You can't really eat too much, or, well, you know, could you overeat in veg?
So that's a great point.
Yeah.
So could you overeat? It's funny because nature is always like perfect if we allow it to be. So the types of foods that are loaded with highly absorbable nutrients, antioxidants, phytochemicals, you physically can't overeat them. I mean,
that's what
think about it. Could you overeat on salad? Like, you just physically can't. At a certain point, you're done, you know?
Yeah.
So nature is so self-protective in that way if we align ourselves with it.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Like, there you go. If you love food, just get your body to adapt to the real foods, as we've been talking about, the live foods, and you can eat as much as you want, and you'll still, you know, apparently veg has just pure nutrients, and it's mostly water and nutrients, so you can't really get really overweight on it. I think is that correct? Like, you could you eat certain, I know there's certain veg like parsnips and carrots, I think there's certain veg that you can, but there's like most veg you could eat to the point where you couldn't really put on weight.
So let's not, like, the whole starchy vegetable question, that's like talk for a whole other time.
That's a whole other one.
But let's just take out the starches. And we're not talking about the starches. I don't think physically you could consume that many that you could take in too many nutrients that's going to harm you. There's too much fiber and water, and you will be full before you could take in a quantity that's going to be harmful.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Your body will stop you. You know what I mean? You can't really overeat because you can only eat so much. But
Yeah.
if you're eating the wrong foods, you can overeat because you don't feel full because your body's not getting the nutrients. That's the thing, isn't it, Glo? Your body's not getting the nutrients. So it's like, keep feeding me, keep feeding me, keep feeding me because I'm not getting the nutrients. That's why you get fat on these overweight on these fake foods. That's
Why
what.
I got fat, and it's why I was a food addict, and why you can, like, John and I have laughed about this, like back in our, like early on when we met and we were going out to restaurants all the time, like we would have, I don't know, a 4-course meal. And we would come back if we were staying at a hotel and we'd raid the fridge and we'd eat chocolate bars. Like, it's not possible to have a 4-course meal and be physically hungry. Your body is starving for nutrition.
That's what it is.
We are, what's that phrase? It's a really good phrase. We're undernourished and overfed.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of putting what we were just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, say it again. Just to.
It's actually, I think you say it the opposite way. We're overfed but undernourished.
Yeah, powerful. So succinct statement saying what we were just the point we were getting across there. So another question is it true washing our food down with water stops acid breaking down food in the gut? And is it true? Let's answer that first. There's two parts to this question. So is it true washing our food down with water stops acid breaking down food in the gut? Is that right?
So I don't know if I 100% understand the question, but let me tell you what I think it means. I wash all my vegetables, even my organic stuff. Like, I don't know who's handled the food. I don't know. Something can be organic and they can put sprays on it afterwards, after it's been farmed, after it's been harvested. But technically it was grown organically. So I wash my food. Now, I'm wondering, is the question related to drinking water? Like while you're eating, does it dilute the digestive enzymes?
I think that's what they were at. Yeah. Okay. I think that's actually what they were getting at. So what's your take on that?
So I used to think that were true. And what I learned lately is that they now are finding, and this is new information, it's new to me, that gastric emptying, so your stomach will just empty out the extra water. That happens. So if you're taking in water when you eat, your stomach will actually empty out the water. It knows the difference. Now, I don't know how true that is. All I can say is that there's some research saying that that's the case. I still don't drink a lot of liquid when I eat. I don't, just to err on the side of caution. So I might have a little bit, I might have a glass of water at the table, but I'll only take enough if I need, just to like wet my whistle if I need it. That's it. Yeah,
and you'd probably recommend, just really chewing your food, isn't it, and getting it. Or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's probably more important. There's another good phrase: eat your drinks and drink your eats. So what that means is chew so well that you've really broken down your food to, pulp. Our stomach doesn't have teeth. So we have to chew it. And the moment we start chewing, that's when digestive enzymes are being released. Even before the food hits our stomach, we activate that process with chewing. So that's a really important part of it.
Brilliant. So Glo, just so you're aware, I'm just looking at questions here while you're just at this time. So in case you're wondering, so, and plus when people are watching this in the replay, just so they know that I'm just looking at a couple of questions. So there's one here. Is it true that salt is essential for good health, especially if you're very active? Did you get that?
It's a great question. And it's one, again, that in a way, the answer is it depends who you ask, right? But I'm going to answer the question the way I live my life based on my own experience. So let's take people who eat a lot of processed foods and let's take them out of the equation, okay? Because if you eat a lot of processed foods, if you eat out, if you get a lot of takeaways, if you go and get sandwiches from a shop every day for your lunches, you are going to be taking in way too much salt. And it's going to be the wrong type of salt, and it's going to cause a whole host of problems. Okay, so that type of salt in processed foods and salt from takeaways, partly the quantity, also the quality, that is never going to work for anybody. But say you're a person who doesn't eat processed foods. You prepare your own foods from whole foods, and you know what's going into your foods. I don't think there's a problem with a little bit of salt. I don't think we should be taking lots of it, but a little bit is okay. And so if you're sweating a lot, if you're very active and you're sweating out minerals, having a little bit, adding in a little bit is going to be okay. If you take distilled water, putting in a little bit of your Himalayan salt, just like a pinch, is okay. So it depends on what the person is already taking in their body. I rarely ever add salt on top of anything. If I do, it's this combination of like pink salt and a volcanic salt, because it doesn't have a huge amount of minerals, but it has some.
All right, that's great. It's answered Sharon's question as well, because Sharon had a question around salt, and she was talking about Himalayan salt. So that is the salt that would be recommended if you were going to take salt. But again, it's all relative to the person, how much processed food they're eating. If they're eating loads of processed food, you don't need salt because it's full of too much salt and sugars and all the rest. So that's that. And again, if you're eating healthy and more whole, real foods, then a bit of Himalayan salt is what you're saying, because that's a more healthier salt, if you like. And
it's not contaminated. Other salts have contamination from the sea and the environment, whereas your Himalayan salt has that bit of minerals, but it also doesn't have the contamination.
Yeah. All right. Loads and loads of comments. I think I've got to most of the questions. Hopefully them all. I try to scan through them as it's hard. Anyway, if there's any questions we missed, we'll get back to you. Myself and Glo, I'll get answers back to you as well. So I think we've covered the main points we wanted to get across here, which is, start working on your mindset to improve your thoughts, because your thoughts can be toxic if they're negative on a regular basis, which causes toxicity in the body, which leads to inflammation. Same with food. If your food's toxic and too processed, then you want to obviously be doing what Glo's been talking about here, getting in the real food, the real food. I think there's another name you put on it, the live food, so the live food, which is the real food, which is the life force food. It's got the true life force in it, and get rid of as much as the processed, toxic, pesticide, processed food. And I have this thing that I say to my clients, and it's just so they don't overwhelm them. Is obviously we talked about, yes, guys, there's a lot of information here, but just don't get overwhelmed. Just take it a day at a time. If you get 1% better every day, it's 365% at the end of the year. That's a good way to look at it. But also then I say to my clients, look, if you even get it 80-20, like 80% the real food, 20% the fake food, if you like, the processed food, because people want to chill out at times and not feel like they're just on this train where they have to do everything perfect all the time. What's your thoughts on that, Glo? Like an 80-20?
Yeah, so it actually depends on the person and how addicted they are to food in general, how reactive their system is to what they take in. So if you are somebody who really struggles, if you take in just a little bit amount of sugar and pesticides and you're, heads up in a packet of Oreos like that, then you have to be stricter. There are other people who don't have to be, because they don't have food addictions. Their body hasn't gotten so out of whack. They have a bit more flexibility. But what I would say to anybody who's looking to make change, start with adding more nutrition. Not trying to eliminate. Don't make that your first step. Make your first step adding in something that is nutritious. Maybe start with one green juice. Start with a celery juice in the morning, or some kind of mixed green juice, or start with a salad and maybe add in some things that aren't ideal on the top. But if it gets you to eat the salad, you can start taking out the less than ideal things as time goes on. If you're a person, if you have trouble enjoying the taste of healthy foods, you've changed the landscape of your brain. Now, the good news is that is reversible, but it is real. If you don't enjoy healthy foods, your brain has changed in not a good way. So you want to start right away reversing it, because the end result of that is things like dementia and Alzheimer's. So start today and it's reversible.
Yeah, when's the best time to start is now, is, you know, yesterday, but now is the best time now, as the saying goes. But yeah, that's a good point, Glo, because I actually, you know, as we know, most of society, obviously there's people like ourselves that are aware of this and are applying this, but like most of general society that aren't being taught this, like, which is the mass society, is nearly 80% fake food, 20% real food. That's kind of the sad reality of a lot of society. Now, obviously there's all variants. There's people 50, you know, 50 fake food, 50 real food. But like I say to my clients, if you can get it 80-20, at least that's not too overwhelming. Like if I said to them 100% real food, like Tony, you know, one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, 100% real food, that's it. You know, people a lot of the time don't do anything then, because it's too much. It's like, oh, it's too much, and then they don't do anything. So I try to get them into it by, oh, you can still chill like 20%. But that's a good point, is that, Glo, you aim for that, but then you want to go even further, because the more real food you have, the more your body's going to be going, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. So it's getting to the, as much as you can, to the 100%, you know, really. And then it depends on the person, like you said, Glo, is if they have, you know, different people have different ailments and stuff. If they're really, you know, it depends on their conditions. If toxic food or like sugars is really not good for them, they're going to have to go 100%. But it depends on how, what's the word? Yeah, how fatal it is. You know, if a doctor says to you, if you eat one bit of sugar, again, you'll die. You know what I mean? That's how fatal it is. And yeah. So, what would be some of the things that would come to mind straight away that someone shouldn't touch sugar? Obviously, diabetes is, but is there anything comes to mind?
Well, and like, when you say shouldn't touch sugar, are we talking specifically refined sugar?
Yeah. Mainly that, but it's, yeah, I suppose everyone's in that category, but I suppose there's some people that are more in danger than others.
Definitely. So diabetics, cancer, probably diabetics, cancer, any kind of heart disease, and depression.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So look, we'll finish off with that. Is there any supplements? Because someone's asked, what supplements do you take, Glo? Do you want to mention any of them, or do you want them to reach out? Or is there any ones you want to mention, just general ones? Because I know there's some products, but is there any general ones maybe?
Well, so if we're just talking in general, I'm going to maybe just do what's relevant for like the timeliness of this call. So right now, we've really got to watch our immune system. So zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, those are really huge. Oh, yeah. Well, no, I said D, right? So D, C, and zinc are huge. Minerals are way more important. We all want to get to like the vitamins and the smoothies and all that, but minerals are such the foundation of all of the functions in our body, including our nervous system. So that would include also things like magnesium. But let's just keep it simple for today and the immune system. Get your C, D, and your zinc for your immune system, and omega-3 is essential for brain function.
Yeah, and what's do you want to give out your contact, which is your email, is it, or how do you want people to reach out to you? Say if someone wanted to contact you.
Gloriane at drgloriane.com. It's drgloriane.com. I think my name showing for everybody there. So
Yeah.
Gloriane at drgloriane.com is my email. And if you can't remember it, you can just send me a Facebook Messenger contact too.
Is your email, yeah, so that's your website, drgloriane.com. Yeah,
right,
isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's your email address?
Gloriane at drgloriane.com.
Right, so Gloriane at drgloriane.com. Okay, and we'll put it in the comments here as well. Your email. So yeah, look, anyone can ask if you're interested in finding out more about health and nutrition and the products that Dr. Gloriane has. Obviously, you can do that, and you can find out more. And if there's any other specific questions, yes, as Dr. Gloriane says, fire the questions across. And yeah, okay. I think that was really powerful, really enlightening information on so many levels that so many people out there need at the minute. If you want to be the best version of yourself, your mind and what you fuel your body with is so key. As we're both saying here. I'm sure you would totally agree, Gloriane, but totally. So with that, anything you want to say to finish off, Gloriane?
Thank you, Mark. I had a great time. And yeah, I love the questions. So feel free if you have more to send me an email.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate your time and your amazing knowledge. And it was just a pleasure. So thank you, Gloriane. And we'll talk again and say hello to John for us, and we'll speak soon.
He's listening.
All right.
Hi, John.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
See you later. Thanks, guys. Thanks for everyone tuning in. See you soon.